In the year 508 BC, the famous principle of democracy was founded in Athens, the ancient Greek city. The Athenian city-state prides itself on the founding of democracy, or demokratia, meaning rule by the people. Initially, the Athenians were ruled by archons, which are chief magistrates who would preside on the famous Areopagus. The archons were aristocratic, as in they were the upper class of society. They governed the armed forces, they governed civil society and also religious matters. In 594 BC, a man by the name of Solon was appointed premier archon and began issuing economic and constitutional reforms in an attempt to relive some of the inequities of Athenian society. One of the major reforms of Solon was the creation of the bull, an executive body that held 500 members, with 50 members coming from each of the 10 tribes of Attica, which was the region of Athens. So the individuals could only hold membership twice in a lifetime in the bull, trying to reflect principles of democracy, that new people, potentially with new ideas, could get appointed to this bull. The primary purpose of having the bull was to prepare meetings for the assembly, known as the Ecclesia, and we'll talk about the Ecclesia very shortly. Members of the bull had to attend all meetings, except for religious occasions, and their powers were once again executive. In other words, they implemented the law. They didn't create new ones. This was left for the Ecclesia. The bull would prepare the meetings for the Ecclesia so they could vote on it. When talking about Athenian democracy, it's almost impossible to talk about the Ecclesia, which controlled the legislative, so controlled, created new laws, and also it was a judicial and constitutional body that would deal with these matters of Athens. The Ecclesia made laws for Athens. However, only male citizens over the age of 20 could attend. In other words, women were not allowed to vote, nor were foreigners. So there's almost a selective way in which the Athenians believed democracy could run. While they were revolutionary and game-changing, if you like, for their time, there were also limits and flaws to who could really be part of this democratic process. Ecclesia meetings were held on the Pnyx, which is 500 meters west of the Acropolis, the high city of Athens, with the council meeting 50 times per year. Like we've said, the agenda for the Ecclesia was prepared by the bull, but the Ecclesia did have the power to put a particular item on a later agenda. So if the bull proposed a particular policy or issue to be debated and discussed, the Ecclesia could push that back. It had the power to do that, emphasizing that the people in Athens have the ultimate say over what goes on in politics. We have the recordings of the famous philosopher Aristotle in his famous work, The Constitution of Athens, where he discusses the various political bodies of Athens and how the state was run. And he actually tells us that when voting was done in the Ecclesia, it was done by a show of hands, and decisions were actually recorded and published. So if one wanted to vote in favour of a particular policy or idea, they would raise their hand and the majority would rule. The Athenians used their principles of democracy in the law courts of Athens as well. The Athenian law courts, known as the Heliaea, decided on civil cases and matters dealing with religious impiety, as in religious malpractice or being contrary to the gods. For example, the Athenian courts prosecuted another famous philosopher, Socrates, for corrupting the youth, where he encouraged the young Athenians to see the flaws of democracy and potentially Greek religion. The jurors were paid a small sum of 2 obols a day, which would roughly be about $10 in today's terms, to serve on the jury, almost being like a jury duty in the modern day world. When attending the court, they were given a small bronze ball with the letter of the court on it. So, in the eyes of the Athenians, this would stop corruption because each individual was randomly assigned a court to attend to. This was designed to stop malpractice and corruption because the letter on the ball would stop you from entering other courts and interfering in their process, but rather, by following this method, you were assigned to your court randomly and there was nothing you could do about it. The Athenians also took up the practice of ostracism, where the people could decide to banish or exile a certain member of society. Athenian citizens would cast their vote by writing the name of the person on pottery. The votes would be counted, and the person with the most votes attached to their name was exiled for 10 years. The Athenians ostracized many famous individuals throughout their history, with some names including Aristides the Just, who was the political rival of Themistocles, a key figure in the Greek victory in the Persian Wars. Also later, during the 5th century, Cimon was ostracized and also banished for 10 years. The Athenians believing once again that the people, the state, democratia, ruled by the people, have the ultimate say over the state and the future of the city. But that brings us to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot for more history content.